Hello, passengers. Welcome aboard Long Walk Talks Lost. This is your pilot speaking. My name is David Hensley. I am the owner and creative director of Long Walk Productions, and I am joined today by my two co-pilots,
Robert Bradford,
Cara Hayes.
And we are doing our Season 2 wrap-up episode for the TV show Lost as part of our 20-year retrospective. So we're going to... Well, first off, we didn't have a themed dinner for this because it wasn't just one batch of episodes, but in retrospect, I'm like, maybe we should have. Maybe we should have come up with something that like encompassed the whole of Season 2.
Well, let me ask, just each of y'all, what was your favorite of the themed episodes we did for this season? Just the one that jumps out at you?
Spam.
The spam was good.
That was good.
The tiny foods.
That was probably my favorite. Yeah, it was just all the little mini stuff.
That was good too.
I ate entirely too many mini corn dogs that night, and it was worth it.
The full corn dogs one we did for the Goodwin episode, also just for being a, you know what, screw it decision. That worked out really well.
That was a very happy accident. But for our next episode, we do have a themed meal set up already, and I'll talk about that when we get there at the end of the episode. Let's do our Season 2 recap. We're going to talk about what worked, what didn't, highlights, and what we're looking forward to in Season 3, and just our overall thoughts. So let's start with what worked. Cara, you take this one.
What worked for me? The love stories. I as someone who generally hates
Feelings?
that too, and romantic movies and all that crap. Like I generally just hate it, but there's something about the Jin and Sun and the Bernard and Rose, like it, and Desmond Penny. It's I don't know if it just brings back memories for me, but I believe all of them.
I think you left out several important ones, though, like Charlie and Claire or Saeed and Shannon. Some of the greatest love stories of all time.
I mean, the greatest story ever told. Not. No.
Robert, what about you? What worked for you?
So I do love John Locke's arc across this from, he spends most of the back half of Season 1 trying to get into the hatch, and once they're inside, he becomes the most devoted proponent of the button, and then when he comes across what seems like hard evidence that the whole thing's actually a joke, he's the one who goes craziest trying to disprove it, whereas Jack just seems to kind of not care about the button. He's just kind of annoyed that Locke makes a big deal out of it, but he's not hostile to the concept or anything. Locke is the one who, once he's not going to push the button anymore, he's angry that anybody else is doing it, which is just a really fun spin on his zealotry as someone who believes in the island. And just the journey of him from the guy who, needs to go down into the hatch to, the guy standing in there while it's crumbling around him, just looking at Echo and admitting that he was actually wrong. He gets a good story.
Well deserved.
David? Or are we just going through our whole list for the...
Oh, I was going to say just go ahead and go through the whole list.
We'll also note that we get the introduction of two characters who are going to become both big in the general mythology of the show, but also fan favorites, with Desmond and the man introduced as Henry Gale, who we'll later know as Ben Linus. And in both cases, it's not just that they're... we know they're going to be good. It's just from the get-go, you remember why these characters landed so well. That they're both really well performed. They engage really well with the existing characters. They're interesting. They've got mysteries in their background.
Mysteries?
Sunday we'll get a mystery on this show. But yeah, there's not every new character intro for this season works. I think some of the tail section survivors were kind of misses. But yeah, we get two just... iconic characters who it's easy to forget that they're not even in the first season or that neither of them was intended to be a big part of the show, but it's great to see them and they just do amazing stuff. Seconding what Cara said about the love stories and just a great run of guest actor casting. There was a run, I think, where we were just commenting like every episode you had just, some fantastic, excuse me, pollen is killing me this week. Whether it's Clancy Brown, Kim Dickens, the guy who was Ana Lucia's partner from The Walking Dead, just
Abraham,
like fantastic run of actors showing up in the flashbacks, which just does so much to make those feel like their own little effective side stories.
Very well said. I think for me overall, what worked about this season And it's going to be interesting to look at it as we go forward to see if it reaches this level again. But it's the way that it built on or added to the mysteries of the island. We had gotten some of that in season 1, but it was more a sense of like, hey, we're stuck on this island. And in this season, they really doubled down on, hey, there's a lot of weird shit going on this island. We finally get to explore the hatch. It's a big mystery all the way up to the end of the season. Why the hell they have to push this button? Why are there other hatches? What happened to them all? What happened to the Dharma Initiative? Who are the others? This season spent a lot of time building on that and setting the stage for the rest of the show.
I agree, and especially love that. Unlike the first season where it felt like weird stuff happened just because this was an island where weird stuff could happen, here it feels like even if we're still, there are mysteries and shadows, we're getting like senses of what these mysteries mean. Like it doesn't feel like random stuff is happening. It just feels like we're getting clues and hints leading us in a particular direction.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I actually like the tailies for the most part, especially because by the time we get to them, they've killed off most of the annoying ones, except for my boy Nathan, who died because he couldn't stop shitting.
Poor Nathan. R.I.P.
Right. But the tail section did give us Mr. Echo. Fucking classic. It gave us back Bernard.
Yay.
For a little while, the island giveth and the island taketh away. We had Libby.
Libby and Hurley.
Libby and Hurley. Anything Hurley related this season, really. Like, this is probably his best season. Again, this is all going by retrospect. We could watch the next 4 and I could be like, no, I'm kidding. This was Hurley's best season. But like everything here this season with him is gold. Except for like the way they handled his psychiatric visit. If I wasn't so fat, all those people wouldn't have died.
Yeah.
That whole thing. But overall, I love Hurley this season. I love Hurley and Libby. So
I also just love the hatch as a location. It's a great set, and just when they trash it at the end of season 2 in the grand tradition of not just leaving a set behind but letting it get destroyed on screen. I was like, I'm going to miss that place. I'm going to miss those like curved walls and all the 70s aesthetic.
Yeah, I added that pretty late in the game to our notes, but I want to talk about that towards the end of the episode. Do you guys have any other additions for like what worked overall for the season?
I'm going to say I like the ambition. I like the scope of what they're going for, and I talked about a lot on the episodes as we went kind of through, but just I do love the theme they get into, mostly with Locke, but just also with Echo, with Jack, of faith and what it means to devote yourself to a task without fully understanding how it fits into the bigger picture of things. Doesn't always land in terms of how that translates into plotting, but I do admire the show for kind of swinging for the fences like that. The show always has really big ideas on its mind, and whether or not those always translate into like rock solid plotting and narrative, it's still just something I love that the show went for.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, we're going to move on to what didn't work. And Robert, you take this one this time.
So, kind of going off the last thing I said, we start off strong with the rivalry between Jack as the man of science and Locke as the man of faith. But that kind of fizzles out, and I was kind of surprised to realize at the end, I don't think Jack ever finds out that Locke had this crisis of faith around the button. Like, as far as he knows, just Locke stopped pushing the button, Echo showed up in the hatch, and then Jack goes off for the confrontation rescue mission with the others. So it's weird that the first 3 episodes setting up their dynamic over the button really has no payoff in the season. That it becomes a feud between Locke and Echo over whether or not the button will get pressed because Jack is off doing something else, which is just weird, especially because the season 1 finale made such a big point of, okay, Jack and Locke are coming to a confrontation over what it means to lead the survivors. So, and we can get into more kind of specific stuff about that, but there are a lot of plots that the show kind of puts down and like clearly intends to pick up but don't really go anywhere. I also think, for all that we talked about like the love stories working, they start to really ramp up the love triangle between Jack, Kate, and Sawyer. There are just so many scenes where, Sawyer wonders if Kate and Jack have been kissing in the jungle, and Jack wonders if Kate really wants to be kissing Sawyer, and it just feels so juvenile. I was thinking about it, and I think the issue is that the show is really good with characters who know how they feel, who know who they're in love with, and are struggling with some obstacle about it. Like, Desmond and Penny both know they're in love with each other, but Desmond has decided he needs to do this thing in order to be worthy of her. Like, Jin and Sun both know they're in love with the other one, but the choices that they made, the life Jin lived, has driven this wedge between them. And so it's like, I think the most boring part of a relationship, and it's frustrating because this is the one TV writers love to drag out the most, is when you want characters just wake up and be honest about how they feel already. And so that's all that Kate, Jack, and Sawyer are right now, is just, oh, who likes who the most? Which boy does Kate like the most? And it's the most childish part of a relationship, which isn't to say it doesn't happen in real life, but it's really exasperating to watch. Whereas in the supporting relationship, it just feels like they're more interesting and more adult reactions, even if they're tied to fantastic situations. And yeah, it's not something I'm looking forward to in season 3 because I know it becomes even bigger.
Yeah, I do want to jump in because I think I realized what it was that is so annoying about the love triangle. Even though all these characters are roughly the same age, it really, like Robert pointed out, leans towards like the teenage drama of it all. These are 3 grown-ass adults. All the other adults in relationships on the island have, even if they have relationship problems, they have their shit together. And then you've got like the medical doctor and the con man and the criminal who are all well in their 30s acting like children.
Yeah. And, excuse me, it's just, frustrating because it's also the one that feels the most artificially dragged out, too, that the writers are just not letting Kate decide which guy she wants to be with. And side note, I don't love that Kate's character is pretty much now reduced to which guy does she want to be with as kind of her animating narrative thing. But yeah, it's just, that's all the decision's going to be, and not, Sun and Jen wondering about, infertility and what it means for them wanting to have kids, or, the reveal that like Rose had a fatal illness and Bernard was unable to accept that he might not be able to be with her for very long. Like, yeah, it's just, that stuff feels tragic and epic and sweeping in the way that this show was at its best. And yeah, like you said, Jack, Kate, and Sawyer is just, it's kids passing notes in high school. Cara, I know you mentioned stuff about Michael, but I'll just say this just feels like the season where Michael and Kate, the writers, kind of gave up on them. Both with Michael being actually written off of the show, but Kate, we find out what she did, and what she did was like the most sympathetic TV crime imaginable. She killed an abusive stepfather. Like, so we give up on any idea that actually Kate might have genuinely done a terrible thing. Kate might really have been a bad person who needs to atone and get better. It's like, no, she committed a really sympathetic crime, and she's just a nice person who got in over her head, which also eliminates any possibility of her having like a meaningful redemption or change story the way that like Saeed or Sawyer might. So it's just, again, Kate will still be a central figure going forward, but the writers kind of, at this point, gave up with giving her a real journey in the way that the show's best characters would really have.
Before we jump over to Cara, listening to you talk, Robert, has just given me the greatest idea I've ever had, and I want you two to get on board with this. We need to like get a hold of Damon Lindelof and J.J. Abrams and pitch them this idea. LIL Lost. A plane full of high school seniors passes over the island and crashes, and now it's them and like 2 teachers stuck on this island. And so it's all the mystery of the island, but with all the teenage drama of like One Tree Hill or something like that.
God, I would rather stab my own eyes out.
No?
Wasn't there a show called like Yellow Jackets or something about like
there is
girls,
right now, yeah.
like a volleyball team or something that, and it's like split between the crazy stuff that happened while they were stranded and the stuff that kept happening when they got back. I haven't seen it. I don't know much about it, but
I'm aware of the show, and I keep seeing previews for it. I did not know that was the general plot. So Showtime, please don't sue me.
I don't know if it's
I was being a dick.
I don't know if it's supernatural or just like Lord of the Flies kind of stuff, but yeah, no, the idea of actually having, and I can't swear that the CW never did like an attempt at something like that, because they had that show, what was it, like the 100? It's like a sci-fi.
That was such a good show.
I heard really good things about that. Starred Desmond. I know Henry and Cusick was on there. But it's like Earth's been rendered uninhabitable, and so we're, after generations in space, like a small group of teenagers get sent down, both because they're imagined to have the best chance of surviving, but also because they're somewhat expendable. and they've just got to sort of try to recolonize and survive the new hostile stuff on the Earth's surface. So, yeah, there have been some efforts. But I was going to say, I'm down for LIL Lost with the caveat that they need to all be Muppets.
I'm good with it. I would watch that show.
Okay. I might get on board with that.
Yeah. The 100. Yet another like CW era TV show that I auditioned for several times and never got on.
Ah, sorry, man.
Damn.
I know, right?
I'll hate it for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Cara, take what you're next on what didn't work.
Well, as we were just talking about with Robert, Kate and Michael. Michael, I just stopped caring. He just became that one focus. I want my son back. And I get it, but Jesus,
you love your son. We get it.
Right? I mean, come on. I don't know. It's just, I don't know.
It's a problem both for him and for the writers as a whole, because why isn't everybody else agreeing, yeah, we need to get Walt back? A child was taken. These people had, 40 odd days to know Walt and care about him and try to protect him. And so the idea that he just got abducted, it's weird that everybody else isn't rallying around Michael being yeah, let's go. Let's make a plan to do this. And he's just the only one who seems actively driven about this.
And maybe that's what makes it so annoying. I don't know. I never thought about it that way, but you're right.
Yeah, very much so. Because even Jack at times is we're going to go and get your son, Michael, eventually. Tomorrow, Michael, we'll go and find your son.
After they've had Henry Gale for a week, and I think it's a week after they've confirmed that he is, in fact, one of the others, it's only then that Jack comes up with the idea of, hey, what if we tried trading him for Walt? What if we made any kind of contact on that? I wasn't really sure how to fit this into my notes, but yeah, the show just has a weird struggle with when to blow up its status quo and when just nope, sorry, everybody else just has to treat it like a normal week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Kate, she didn't work for me. She just... I don't know if she ever was a strong character. I liked her very much in season 1, especially, originally watching it. But now she vacillates between a hindrance and then kind of, okay, maybe you're helpful in some respects.
Kate was better the least we knew about her. The more we find out about Kate, the less I like her.
Yeah.
It's just finding out that there's not that much more interesting to find out. Or what is potentially interesting about her past doesn't really translate to anything meaningful on the island.
Yeah.
Well,
so that's what I got.
Well, for me, the whole Jack and Ana Lucia want to train an army thing had a lot of potential and just sort of went nowhere. Immediately went nowhere. It's not even hey, we're starting and we're recruiting people and we're teaching them how to use guns and everything. We get one line, and then later, I think Locke brings up something about it, and then it's just sort of forgotten about. And then Ana Lucia dies, so the idea of training an army dies with her.
Bummer.
But it fizzled out so quickly and had so much potential. Sorry, Robert, go ahead.
Well, it's just frustrating because it's a pretty rational thought. They know the others are out there now, and when the tail survivors reunite with them, it should be confirmed, yeah, they're out there, and they're going to keep coming. They took, multiple people from the tail section. Shannon died because the tail survivors were so jumpy about it, and Walt got kidnapped. So, yeah, why aren't they posting guards? Why aren't they sleeping in shifts? Why aren't they... It's just this weird... And eventually we do get the explanation when there's that episode where, Mr. Friendly's here's the line, stay on this side of it, and we don't have a problem. But up to that point, they're not acting like someone could come out of the jungle and attack them at any moment. It's, yeah, again, a weird thing where they introduce this concept but won't let the characters live with that like it's a week-to-week reality.
And Bernard even brings it up in SOS when he's why have you all given up on getting rescued? Why have you all given up on... And I don't think he's focusing on the rescue aspect of it, but it's also, why have you given up on trying to protect yourselves against this, as far as we know, otherworldly kind of force that abducts people and breaks every bone in their body? The other thing that I really think fell flat this season, if you removed Sawyer and Charlie's subplots from this season, everything would have ended up exactly the same way. Ultimately, the whole thing about trying to baptize the baby, going through his little crisis and having prophetic dreams and and is struggling with heroin. If you removed all of that, Charlie's the same from the beginning of the season to the end and contributes nothing to the overall plot. Once Sawyer gets back to the island and back with the main group, if you take away like him trying to reassert dominance by stealing the guns and tricking everybody,
which is, by the way, another plot that seems like it would have a huge impact on the week-to-week dynamics. Like Sawyer basically declared himself the sole means of enforcement among the island community, and everybody's still just kind of hanging out and playing cards with him.
Right. And also, like, they get the guns and medicine they need pretty quickly every single time. And it's not even like they explore that. Like, they could have literally, like, next episode, Sawyer's like talking to somebody like, okay, well, maybe I went a little too far and maybe I fucked up. How do I fix this now and getting back in everyone's good graces? No, there's none of that. They ran out of things for both Charlie and Sawyer to do this season, and we got these useless subplots that contributed nothing. So for two characters that we came to love as much as we did over the first season, it's just really frustrating to see them backslide like that.
It just felt like Sawyer had become too much of a clear hero by the end of season 1, and we talked about that, like this great journey from being, the most abrasive outsider of the cast to a guy who would draw a gun and get shot trying to protect Walt. And they were just like, oh, well, we'd actually rather have him be more of an anti-hero side. So he just abruptly goes, takes this dark turn. But they clearly did not have any scenario where they were like, well, why wouldn't Sawyer give someone medicine if they need it? Or why wouldn't he give a gun to someone who just asked them and explained why they wanted it? Like, there's never a scene where Sawyer says no or where someone is seriously inconvenienced by getting what they need, with Sawyer having the guns versus them being locked in the hatch.
And you could have even gone the opposite direction of Sawyer admitting that he fucked up and show like, well, maybe what if Sawyer had the right idea? What if somebody came up and was like, Sawyer, I need the Sudafed. And he's like, are you making a meth lab? Or it's like, Sawyer, we need guns. Why? Are you going to go and traipse into the jungle and start a shootout with the others? No, that's a dumb idea. Like, you could have seen maybe he had the right idea. That's very far-fetched and would never have happened, but it was a possibility and would have been interesting to explore at least.
I feel like they didn't realize that like the first third of the season would be about the tail survivors and the people from the raft getting back to the main group. And then they tried to sort of introduce plots that would have normally covered an entire season of time, but they just did not have the space for it. For like Sawyer to go all the way out here morally and then come all the way back in. They're just like, well, crap, if we had 16 episodes, we could do that. But by this point, we've only got 8 left.
Right. Well, let's talk highlights. I'll start with this one. Obviously, Rose and Bernard.
Aww.
We spent a lot of time talking about how much we love Rose and Bernard and how great their episode, their flashback-centric episode was. And I just love Hurley and Libby. I do. They were so adorable together. Cynthia Watros is so good for the short amount of time that she has. Jorge Garcia plays that role to the hilt and is going to continue to be one of the greatest things about the show. And the writers were absolutely on the nose in that we would not care at all about Ana Lucia getting killed, but we were all upset about Libby.
Yeah.
And then I liked the other 48 days a lot more than I thought I would, because they managed to take all of the drama of the first season about what happened to all these characters and boil it down to one 45-minute episode. Like, they cut out... If the Tailies were to have their own season, they probably would have had their own romance subplots, and we find out about who's fucking who and whatever. No, we boil all of that down to here's what happened, here's the highlights, here's why they are the way they are, here's why Nathan was in the bathroom, and that's it. Like, it just really works as an episode to me. Cara.
So for me, it was Ben Linus. I love him. And I hate him, but I hate him because I love him. And Mr. Echo and Penny. Like, those things overjoyed me so much.
You're a Mr. Echo fan, huh?
I am.
That's the first I'm hearing about it.
We should talk about that a little more.
I know.
Yeah, why didn't you ever bring that up?
I don't know. I mean, it just felt kind of weird.
Mm-hmm. To fangirl over there. I can see you doodling Cara plus Mr. Echo forever in your journal over there.
I won't say that I haven't. I had a journal.
Robert, how about you? What were the highlights in your opinion?
So I just noted a couple of like moments specifically that just kind of leaped out at me. There's that shot of Echo staring down the smoke monster, which is still just one of the coolest visuals the show pulled out. And like you pointed out, I think when we did our season 2 finale, the smoke monster just kind of screws off for the rest of the season. It took one look at Echo and was like, yeah, I don't want none of this, and was just gone. Kind of building on what Cara said, every scene where Henry Gale is playing mind games with someone, so basically every scene he's in, but just you realize why they quickly realized what gold they'd struck with Michael Emerson, because the way he plays, just the manipulation, the power dynamics with everybody he shares a scene with, it's so good. It across the run of the show, it will never get old. It will just always be so entertaining, even as he gets to more desperate places and becomes a more sympathetic character. I just note that I love Saeed across this whole thing, that he just remains one of the most like steady-minded, competent people on the island. One of my favorite moments, I don't think we talked about it when we did the episode, but when Jack and Locke have their first argument over whether or not to push the button after Saeed has repaired the computer, Saeed just goes, this arguing is irrelevant, and goes to just push it himself because he's got no time for this. And Locke insists that Jack has to push it, but just that Saeed has just no patience for their nonsense. The fact that he, while he's angry after Shannon dies, he also recognizes that killing Ana Lucia isn't going to bring her back. He, immediately recognizes that obviously Henry Gale is one of the others, and while torture is bad, he is completely right that this guy is not to be trusted. He's right to keep pushing even when they seem to find evidence that confirms Henry's story. He's immediately figures out that Michael's one of the others, and it realizes we can use this to our advantage, and I can scout before they get there. The plan doesn't work, but it's not really his fault. So so much drama does rely on characters just making mistakes and being stupid, and I don't hate that as a rule, because sometimes people do make mistakes and people are stupid. But for someone who's been established to have the skill set that Saeed does, it's nice that the writers don't require him to just be a dummy for things to happen. And finally, just the climax of the season 2 finale, which overall I love just for the story it gives us of Desmond and the build to the things in the hatch. But another moment is just Desmond doing what he thinks is going to be the last act of his life, thinking back to over his time with Penny and just saying, I love you, before he turns the key. Oh, it's beautiful. I'm glad we get more of him, but that would not have been a bad send-off for his character.
Agreed. So we alluded to it earlier, and I brought it up, I think, way back when we did the season 1 recap. Did they get rid of the hatch too soon? Because the back half of season 1 was building up to them getting into the hatch. It was a major factor for Locke and for Jack and their conflict and growth. There's so much mystery to unpack there. And plus, it was just a nice little reprieve for our characters to have beds, to have supplies.
A shower.
Laundry.
Ooh, laundry.
To just have the hatch for one season, was that too little? Or did it serve its purpose? What do you guys think? I'm on record as thinking that maybe they should have kept it around a little bit longer. What else could we have done with it, considering what a huge deal they made out of it?
Well, no, go ahead.
Well, I would say that I'm okay with it. For all that I think a lot of what doesn't work about the season is kind of tied into the writers having a hard time balancing like big changes, things that are like huge shifts to the status quo, with also needing things to be similar enough week to week in the way that network television demands. I think ending the show with just destroying the hatch and being like, and now what's going to happen? Like, to have that be a big enough, and it's a very climactic send off to it, that to reveal that yes, the button was real, yes, there was something that happens, and this is going to, in the long run, play into who Desmond is and how he fits into the show's mythology. So I'm okay with it just being confined to this one season. I think it gets a big enough send off, and while I don't love everything they do in the early going of season 3, I think kind of having a sharp divide between this stage of the survivors' time on the island and that one makes a lot of sense. So I'm okay with it.
I mean, I'm definitely going to miss it because I honestly would love to live in there. I know that sounds like I don't want to live underground or anything, but I don't know. It just, it's.
You want to have a house built to the exact specifications of the hatch?
I don't not.
Alarm going off every 108 minutes?
Maybe not that part. Maybe not that part.
Big swell of electromagnetic energy right underneath the house, always threatening to destroy your house, and possibly the entire world.
Okay, but how cool would it be if you could walk in, take your keys out of your pocket, and just throw them against a wall?
I mean, listen, at least I'd stop losing them.
You would never be able to have credit cards, obviously. That would probably be an issue.
You're also not allowed to like have prosthetic limbs. Like,
Well, darn. I was gonna.
right? Like, imagine the first time you walk by and your leg just gets pulled off of you and stuck to the wall.
You couldn't have Wolverine over for dinner, sadly.
No. Wow. But so aside from, aside from the fact that I will miss it, I tend to agree with Robert. I think it kind of had to be now.
I gotcha. All right. So let's talk, looking ahead, looking forward to season 3. What are we looking forward to in season 3? I should say. I could have worded that better. Me, personally, I can't wait till we find out the history of Jack's tattoos.
Oh, boy.
I really feel like that's going to be monumental in the audience, learning more about Jack and who he is, why he works the way he does. I'm sure that the time that they mentioned that he spent in Phuket, I think, why that was important to him. And I'm kidding, of course, because that episode is garbage, but nonetheless, I can't wait to watch it again with you guys, and I can't wait to discuss that episode with you guys.
Because I don't remember a damn bit of it.
There's a good reason for that.
Yeah.
Probably.
I'm really, really looking forward to Charlie being interesting again and having a plot, or having a part in the plot of this show again. That's going to be nice.
Breaking up with Evangeline Lilly was, in the long run, the best thing to happen for his character.
Mm-hmm. Ben Linus is going to Ben Linus. Can't wait to build on that and find out more about that character. And then, of course, there's the end of season 3, which is the twistiest of twists that I absolutely cannot wait to get to.
Again, I don't remember it, and I can't wait to get there either.
All right.
I know. It's really good that my memory is Swiss cheese.
Yeah, it is. It makes we get to experience all of these things with you again for the first time.
Yay.
Cara, what are you looking forward to in season 3?
So I am just looking forward to being anywhere other than the beach. I don't know.
It's a pretty, pretty beach, but oh my gosh, we spent a lot of time there.
We did. I think I have sand in my shoes from the amount of time we've spent out there.
I'm really glad you said shoes.
But also the others. Like, I remember just this was the craziest, weirdest, like, what the fuck is going on part of the season, or part of the show, but the early parts of this season, like, it's just
I'm curious to come back and watch that again, because I talked a little bit this season about how much I enjoyed sort of the horror movie presentation of the others as these sort of unknowable, unstoppable, supernatural menaces. And remembering that they have kind of a mundane existence in season 3 takes a little bit of the wind out of those sails. I want to go into it and try to have sort of a fresh approach and be like, maybe I'm not remembering well enough how creepy their normalcy ends up being. That maybe there is something kind of like David Lynchian in like the picket fences and the nice houses around these people who have otherwise been monstrous. So I'm curious to see if that plays out better than I remember it.
Robert, what are you looking forward to?
So again, I kind of noted just specific moments. We are going to get the comeuppance to Anthony Cooper, just the worst dad on the show, in what is one of the finest pieces of acting that Josh Holloway gets to do during his entire run on the show, which is really no small thing. We get to meet Juliet, who, for as much as I've griped about the Jack, Kate, Sawyer triangle, she does bring us one of the few relationships in that whole thing that has some real spark. And similar to you, David, we have to go back. I was saying that I think the show's issue here is struggling with when to break the status quo and how to preserve. That's the moment where the show just decided to put a rocket through its main premise and just announce that, no, we are going to hit a point where it's impossible to return to what happened before.
The what the fuckiest of what the fucks. Yeah. All right. So overall, your final thoughts on the second season. I'll go first. I remember saying in our season 1 recap that I seem to remember season 2 being the best of them all, or my overall favorite. And now looking back, it holds up. It is still a great season of television. It does have some low points, and it really feels like the lows this season are lower than the lows in the first season. Just so much character derailment really takes its toll on the season as a whole. So no, I don't think it's the best season after all. I'm going to take a bold swing now and say that season 4 probably is. But we'll see in like a year from now if that holds up too. Who wants to go next?
Well, I mean, I know that this is going to come as a shock to you guys, but this season brought me Echo and Desmond like back to my life. And I don't think I realized how much I missed them, because seeing them again, it's been great. Like, I have loved every minute that they have been on screen, even though I didn't get a lot of Desmond. But I thought it was a good season. You know, I have no major, well, I have some complaints. But you know, 2 of my most hated characters died, so fuck off. I don't care. That made it good.
Well said.
Indeed.
Robert?
Yeah, so I think season 2, the show, it expands its ambition. It has like a bigger budget. It's taken bigger swings, and it locks in more to some ideas about where things are going. Like, it's pointing to the Dharma Initiative, the others, the story of Charles Widmore. Like, we're getting a lot of the pieces laid out that are going to shape where this show goes in the long run. On a week-to-week basis, it does struggle a lot. There are just times where they can't really figure out what to do with these characters from one week to another, and they have a hard time making the implications of these big things they've announced or they've done feel like they're really impacting the lives of the characters who are in like the B and C plots, which doesn't have to be omnipresent, but there are times where it's just weird to see like this goofy plot, like you mentioned, of like Jack and Kate running around the island playing golf, where like, you know, while Saeed is tied up so he doesn't murder Ana Lucia for shooting Shannon, that it's just the tonal whiplash, it does struggle. So I agree with you that I don't think this holds up as one of the best seasons, for as much as I like the themes and the ambition that it's going for. As always, Lost nails it with the finale. It's a great ride, and it has some incredible high points. I'm inclined to agree with you that I think season 4 is the one that I remember being the strongest, both because it just takes the momentum of the season 3 finale and just blows forward with it, and also just has some of the most memorable like action set pieces and just like I remember that being like the best of Lost. So yeah, right now I would rank season 2 below season 1. Not a bad season, but I see why people viewed it as kind of a sophomore slump at the time. There was actually some wondering, like, okay, did the magic go out? Is Lost really going to have it? And thankfully, you know, people thought it was going to do what Heroes did, which I think Heroes came out a couple of years later, but people were like, okay, maybe this was just one iconic first season, and they're never really going to recapture that. I'm very glad that turned out not to be the case.
Agreed. Well, I started keeping track of when episodes were released because we started recording our season 2 recap of the show back in January, around the time season 2 started airing in 2006. So I thought it'd be interesting, like, what, 19, 20 years ago, what episodes were coming out. And did it correspond at all to our recording schedule, doing 3 or 4 episodes at a time as opposed to doing it week to week. So I looked up like what was happening in season 2 around this time, and then that led me down a rabbit hole of what was happening with the other seasons. So we are recording this episode on Sunday, March 30th, even though it's going to get released on Wednesday, April 2nd. But 20 years ago today, Deus Ex Machina, Season 1, Episode 19 aired, a very famous Locke episode. March 29th, 2006. So just barely over 19 years ago. Lockdown, episode 217. March 28th, 2007. 18 years ago. Expose, the Nikki and Paolo episode.
The saving throw for two of the most loathed characters in the show's history.
Season 4 was weird because there was a 3 or 4 week break between episodes. So the most recent one at that time in 2008 was Meet Kevin Johnson, episode 408, season 4, episode 8. And then April 1st, 2009, season 5, episode 11, Whatever Happened. And then 15 years ago today, March 30th, 2010, The Package, season 6, episode 10. As it's just to me, it's interesting to look back on the time capsule of when these episodes were coming out. I don't know if it interests you as much, if the two of you are, as nostalgic as I am, to think back holy shit, 15 years ago. But anyway, so before we get into season 3 in 2 weeks, first we are going to watch the movie The Stepfather with Terry O'Quinn. And for our themed dinner, I asked the question, well, what would a stepfather serve for dinner for his new kids? My idea, and thankfully Kara's smarter than I am, I was like, let's just cut up some hot dogs and put them in some stovetop mac and cheese. That seems like a stepdad thing to do, right? But Kara's got one better.
Spaghetti and meatballs.
Classic.
Yes.
Yep. So we'll be looking forward to that and watching The Stepfather next weekend so that we can release that episode on April 9th, Wednesday the 9th. So how's the whole social media thing treating you guys these days?
I'm just going to talk about things that are bringing me joy. So, David, you and I have both been watching Daredevil Born Again on Disney Plus, and that show has really exceeded my expectations. I was cautiously optimistic when they announced the overhaul that they were bringing back more of the Netflix series characters, but that show's turned out to be a lot of fun, and it's distinguished itself from the Netflix series in some ways that I'm enjoying more than I expected.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Kara, you can either talk about social media or one particular thing that's been giving you joy recently.
For me, it's been funny animal videos. I mean, it's a perennial favorite, but God, especially cat videos. I'm not a super cat person. Cats are great, but I had them. But I'm tend to be more of a dog person or a bunny person right now. But they give me life. They really do.
I feel about cats the way that I feel about kids. I like them when they belong to other people.
Yes.
They're not coming home with me.
Agreed. Yes.
I had a cat for a long time. My dad was a crazy cat lady who would take in strays and feed them on our back porch. Kitty and I, my wife, get a lot of joy for some reason out of watching the videos about the hairless cats. Famously Nudicrous, the hairless cat that just looks like a chicken cutlet.
Probably feels like one too.
Yeah, I imagine what is petting a hairless cat like? Anyway, but I am still on social media, unfortunately. So if you want to follow me online, the best place to do that is on Instagram at DB Hensley. If you want to DM me funny animal videos, I'll DM you back a video of a hairless cat. Why not?
My wife and I have 2 cats, and I really should just fill my social media feed with them.
Yeah, I mean, start your own adventures of Noir and Matrix.
Yeah.
I'd
watch that.
I'm not on Blue Sky, and I don't know if Katie actually followed through on it or not, but she made an account specifically for our dog Millie, our Boston Terrier. So I guess I would need to join in order to find out if she's actually been keeping up with the ongoing misadventures / non-adventures of our fat, lazy Boston. The one we started calling her Goblin. Anyway. If you want to keep up with Long Walk Productions, you can visit us online at longwalk.us. Excuse me. To see more of our original work or hear past episodes that are no longer streaming, you can follow the YouTube links in the show notes. Thank you very much for listening, and if you enjoy this show or any of the shows on the Long Walk Podcast Network, please make sure to leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening on.